Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We come in.
Revathi, you have to unmute.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We commence today's Satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by Sri Nandakumar Sir's Trayam. Ekam Aksharam.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam aksharam Hridayantaram Bhyasati Swayam Likyate Katham हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि मनसा स्वं चिन्वतामज्जता पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवन् देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तभावशुक्तिसमये सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः
We will now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram by Uma Shripati and Srimati Ashwini Balaji.
Namo Ramana. Vayurodhanat kliyate mana jalapakshivadrodasadhanam chittavayavaschitkriyayutah शाकयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलका लयविनाशने उभयरोधने लयगतं पुनर्भवति नोऽमृतम् प्राणबन्धनात् लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तनात् नाशमेत्यध नष्टमानसोत्कृष्टयोगिना कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्तितिं यथा दृश्यवारिदं चित्तमात्मना चित्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनं मानसं तु किं मार्गणे कृते नैव मानसं मार्गार्जवात् वृत्तयस्त्वहं वृत्तिमाश्रिताः वृत्तयो मनो विद्यहं मन अहमयं कुतो भवति चिन्वत ऐपतत्यहं निजविचारणम् अहं विनाशभाज्यहमहं तया स्फुरतिरुत्स्वयं परमपूर्णसत्. नमो नमः.
Namo Ramana. We now have 3 songs from Ramananjali music. First one by Srimati V. Radha and Vallabh Srinivasan. Second will be by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan. The third one by Kumari Revathi Sankar.
Namo Ramana everyone. Today we shall be presenting a song written by Muruganatha Swami, a Telugu translation by J.H. Bhimacharya, music by Vijay Bhaskar. Deenabandhura Vayya Ramana Shiva Yogi Jnanamritamu Poyarara Amara Yogi Rara Deenabandhura Vayya Ramana Shiva Yogi Bhavamu Bandhamu Muktudaina Jnana Yogini Vata Bhavamu Bandhamu Muktudaina Jnana Yogini Vata Karma Palamulantarani Shanti Duta Vivata Karma Palamulantarani Shanti Duta Vivata Madamukama Matsaralu Dharikirani Bhogive Madamukama Matsaralu Dharikirani Bhogive Nirakara Brahmamunu Chuchinatti Yogive Nirakara Brahmamunu Chuchinatti Yogive Deenabandhura Vayya Ramana Shiva Yogi Gaganatalamuna Velayo Purna Chandra Nidhanana Gaganatalamuna Velayo Purna Chandra Nidhanana Jiva Koti Satamugoluchu Paramatma Ramana Jiva Koti Satamugoluchu Paramatma Ramana Indriyamula Vashamukani Yogi Raja Ramana Indriyamula Vashamukani Yogi Raja Ramana Ragadulanu Bapu Ramanakya Rushivi Nivu Ragadulanu Bapu ಶಾಕ್ಯ ಋಷಿವಿ ನೀವು ದೀನಬಂಧು ರಾಮಯ್ಯ ರಮಣ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿ ಜ್ಞಾನಾಮೃತಮು ಪೋಯರಾರ ಅಮರ ಯೋಗಿರಾರ ದೀನಬಂಧು ರಾಮಯ್ಯ ರಮಣ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿ ರಮಣ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿ ರಮಣ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿ.
ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ ಓ ರಮಣ ಸಂಕಟಹರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ ಓ ರಮಣ ಸಂಕಟಹರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ. ಹೆಂಡತಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಸಂಸಾರ ಮನೆ ಹೊಲಗದ್ದೆಯು ಬಂಗಾರ ಹೆಂಡತಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಸಂಸಾರ ಮನೆ ಹೊಲಗದ್ದೆಯು ಬಂಗಾರ ಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಸುಖಗಳ ಜಾಲದಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಸುಖಗಳ ಜಾಲದಲ್ಲೇ ಸಿಲುಕಿದೆ ನಿನ್ನನು ಕಾಣದಲೇ ಓ ರಮಣ ಸಂಕಟಹರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ. ಸುಳಿಯಲಿ ಸಿಲುಕಿಯ ಕಡ್ಡಿಯ ರೀತಿ ಸುತ್ತಿದೆ ನನ್ನಯ ಮನವು ಸುಳಿಯಲಿ ಸಿಲುಕಿದ ಕಡ್ಡಿಯ ರೀತಿ ಸುತ್ತಿದೆ ನನ್ನಯ ಮನವು ಜಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಲುಕಿದ ಹರಿಣಿಯ ಹಾಗಿದೆ ಆಂದೋಳನದೇ ಅರಿವು ಓ ರಮಣ ಸಂಕಟಹರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ. ಮಾಯೆಯ ಮುಸುಕಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಯೋಗಿಯೇ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಪಾದವ ಅರಸಿದೆ ನಾನು ಮಾಯೆಯ ಮುಸುಕಿಗೆ ಸಿಲುಕದ ಯೋಗಿಯೇ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಪಾದವ ಅರಸಿದೆ ನಾನು ವಿಷಯದ ಕೇದಿಗೆ ಅರಿಸುವ ನನ್ನ ಮನ ಭೃಂಗಕ್ಕೆ ದಾರಿ ತೋರು ನೀನು ಓ ರಮಣ ಸಂಕಟಹರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ ಓ ರಮಣ ಸಂಕಟಹರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ ಬಿಡೆನ ನಿನ್ನಯ ಚರಣ. ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀ ರಮಣಾಯ.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We are meditating on Ramana Suprabhatam written by Shantanandapuri Swami. This is the 17th verse which we are going to meditate today. Bhranta vibhinna guru bodhita yoga margah Shrantah prayatna bahulam tapa acharantyah तेषां विचारणपथार्जुमार्गदर्शी आनन्दचिद्रमणभो तव सुप्रभातम् भ्रान्ता विभिन्नगुरुबोधितयोगमार्गः श्रान्ताः प्रयत्नबहुलं तप आचरन्तः तेषां विचारणपथार्जुमार्गदर्शी आनन्दचित्रमणभो तव सुप्रभातम्. Good morning, O Ramana, the Supreme Consciousness Bliss. You have shown the straightforward path of self-enquiry to those deluded in yoga paths advocated by various preceptors and to those weary, performing tiring austerities. Whatever sadhana we may be doing, like parayana, japa, reading books, singing, dancing, and many more other sadhanas, these are all ladders or paths which lead to the direct path, self-enquiry, which is given to us to reach the ultimate path, to ultimate goal by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. When we surrender to that Supreme One, the direct path reveals itself to us. Wherever we go, whichever path we take, He lights that path and shows the light of self-enquiry at the end of the path. I present to you a song written by, a translation by N.S. Lakshminarayana Bhatta, music by M. Rangaram. ತನ್ನವರನು ಕೈ ಬಿಡುವನೆ ರಮಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮರುಳೇ ತನ್ನವರನು ಕೈ ಬಿಡುವನೆ ರಮಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮರುಳೇ ಯಾವ ದಾರಿಯನು ಬೆಳಗುವ ಅರುಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ನಿನಗಾರಗಳೇ ಯಾವ ದಾರಿಯನು ಬೆಳಗುವ ಅರುಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ನಿನಗಾರಗಳೇ ತನ್ನವರನು ಕೈ ಬಿಡುವನೆ ರಮಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮರುಳೇ ಲೋಕದ ಬಂಧನ ತಾಕದ ರೀತಿ ಕೇಡಿನ ಮಡಿಲಿಗೆ ದೂಡದ ರೀತಿ ಲೋಕದ ಬಂಧನ ತಾಕದ ರೀತಿ ಕೇಡಿನ ಮಡಿಲಿಗೆ ದೂಡದ ರೀತಿ ನಂಬಿದ ಮಗುವನು ನಡೆಸುವ ರಮಣ ನಂಬಿದ ಮಗುವನು ನಡೆಸುವ ರಮಣ ತಾನೇ ತಾಯಿಯೊಲು ತನ್ನವರನು ಕೈ ಬಿಡುವನೆ ರಮಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮರುಳೇ ಒಪ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಂಡವಗೆಲ್ಲಿದೆ ನಾನು ಅಳಿದ ಮೇಲುಂಟೆ ನೀನು ಒಪ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಂಡವಗೆಲ್ಲಿದೆ ನಾನು ಅಳಿದ ಮೇಲುಂಟೆ ನೀನು ಯೋಚನೆಯಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅಳಿಯಲು ಮನವು ಯೋಚನೆಯಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅಳಿಯಲು ಮನವು ಇರುವುದೆಲ್ಲ ಬರಿ ಅವನು ತನ್ನವರನು ಕೈ ಬಿಡುವನೆ ರಮಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮರುಳೇ ಯಾವ ದಾರಿಯನು ಬೆಳಗುವ ಅರುಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ನಿನಗಾರಗಳೇ ತನ್ನವರನು ಕೈ ಬಿಡುವನೆ ರಮಣ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮರುಳೇ. Namo Ramana. We will now have the reading and sharing of the book Forever is in the Now by Sri Nandakumar sir.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we have been reading from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, a compilation of wonderful articles by many authors. These articles have been edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajan ji. In the last few weeks, we have been reading the 3 articles contributed by Professor S.K. Ramachandra Rao, and this week we are reading the article given by Sadhuvam Swamigal. The article is entitled Sadhana and Work. The note about Sadhuvam Swamigal says, Sadhuvam Swami, the author of The Path of Sri Ramana, Parts 1 and 2, exceptional lyricist who has composed hundreds of songs on Ramana, an authority on Ramana's teachings. He has written commentaries on Ulladunarpade, Upadesa Saram, and Guruvachaka Kovi. Sadhana and Work by Sadhuvam Swamigal. The charge made against humanity is that throughout their life, all people attend only to the second and third persons, the objects such as you, he, she, it, this, that, and so on. And they never turn their attention towards the first person, the subject I, in order to find out who am I. The charge made against humanity is that throughout their life, all people attend only to the second and third persons, and they never turn their attention towards the first person in order to find out who am I. From the moment of waking till the moment of going to sleep, birth till death, from creation till dissolution, all people, indeed all living beings, pay attention only to the second and the third persons. What is the net result of such attention? Untold heaps of misery. Knowing that all miseries arise only as a result of the fundamental error, the original sin of attending to second and third persons, instead of attending to and knowing the true nature of the first person, Bhagavan Sri Ramana graciously appeared on earth to advise humanity. Throughout the waking and dream states, you attend only to the second and third persons, but in consequence you experience endless misery. But in sleep, when you do not attend to any second or third person, you do not experience any misery. Overlooking the peaceful happiness that you experienced while asleep, you search for happiness in the waking state by attending to innumerable external objects. However, does not the fact that you experienced happiness during sleep in the absence of those objects indicate that happiness lies not in the objects but in you, the first person or the subject? Therefore, why not you try, even in the waking state, to attend not to the second and third persons, but to the first person, I. Being the perfect spiritual doctor that he is, Sri Bhagavan has diagnosed the exact cause of our sufferings and has prescribed the only perfect course of treatment, namely taking the medicine of self-attention and observing the diet restriction of abstaining from attending to second and third persons. I'll read that paragraph again. Being the perfect spiritual doctor that he is, Sri Bhagavan had diagnosed the exact cause of our sufferings and has prescribed the only perfect course of treatment, namely taking the medicine of self-attention and observing the diet restriction of abstaining from attending to second and third persons. Those of us who pay heed to this advice of Sri Bhagavan and who therefore desire to follow the course of treatment prescribed by him are called mumukshus or aspirants for liberation. In order to qualify as an aspirant, one must have the absolute conviction that happiness, the sole aim of all living beings, can be obtained not from external objects, but from one's own inmost self. When one has this qualification, an intense yearning will arise in one's heart to try to attend to and know the self. Indeed, for a true aspirant, the desire and effort to know the self will become the most important part of his life, and all other things will be regarded as being only of secondary importance. When such an intense yearning arises in one, success is assured, for where there is a will, there is a way. On hearing this, however, some devotees wonder whether it is necessary then to withdraw from all activities in order to be able to practice self-attention. If we are to follow this sadhana of self-attention in all earnestness, will not work prove to be an obstacle? And if we give up all work, how are we to provide for food, clothing and shelter required for the body? They ask. However, when devotees ask Sri Bhagavan such questions, he used to reply that work need not be a hindrance to spiritual practice or sadhana. This does not mean, of course, that an aspirant should work in the same spirit as a worldly man, or that he should work with the same aim in view. The spirit in which and the aim with which an aspirant should work in this world can be illustrated by the following example. Suppose a businessman rents a shop in the heart of a big city for ₹1,000 a month. If from his business he aims to make only sufficient money to pay rent for the shop, will it not be a worthless business? So this is Sadhuvan Swami's favorite example as to why we should do Atma Vicharam. So let us go through it carefully. Suppose a businessman rents a shop in the heart of the big city for ₹1,000 a month. If from this business he aims to make only sufficient money to pay the rent for the shop, will it not be a worthless business? Should not his aim in renting the shop be to earn a profit of ₹10,000 a month? On the other hand, if he does not make sufficient money even to pay the rent, will he be able to remain in the shop to earn his profit? Our body is like the shop rented by the businessman. The aim with which we rent this body is to realize the self, while the rent we have to pay for the body is food, clothing and shelter. In order to pay this rent, it is necessary for us to work, using the mind, speech and body as our instruments. If we do not pay the rent, we cannot live in the body and earn the great profit of self-knowledge. However, we should not spend our whole time, all our time and effort in working to pay the rent. The mind, speech and body should work only for that amount of time and with that amount of effort which is required for paying the rent, that is, for providing the food, clothing and shelter needed for the body. If instead we devote all our time and effort towards accumulating comforts and conveniences for the body, as worldly people do, we would be just like worthless businessmen who works only for paying the rent and who never makes a profit. Therefore, a sincere aspirant should arrange his work in such a way that he will spend only a portion of his time and energy for maintaining the body, so that he can utilize the remaining time and energy in striving to earn the great profit of self-knowledge. For some aspirants, prarabdha will be arranged by God or Guru in such a way that they need to do little or no work to maintain their body, whereas for other aspirants, it may be arranged in such a way that they have to spend most of their time in working for the maintenance of the body. But in whatever way the prarabdha is arranged, it is arranged only for the aspirant's own good. Moreover, since prarabdha determines only the outward activities of the body and mind, it can in no way obstruct the inward desire and yearning for self-knowledge. If one has an intense yearning for self-knowledge, the Guru's grace will certainly help one in all ways, both from within and without, to enable one to attend to the self. Some people complain, however, that throughout their life, they are forced to be engaged in so many activities that they have no time for self-attention. But even in the midst of many other important activities, do we not find time to eat, take bath, answer the natures of call, sleep, and so on? Similarly, in the midst of all other activities, an earnest aspirant will find at least a few minutes each day to practice self-attention. In the beginning, if possible, at least 10 minutes should be devoted in the morning and evening to the practice of self-attention. Such regular daily practice is recommended by Sri Bhagavan in verse 44 of Sri Arunachala Aksharamanamalai, the bridal garland of letters, in which he sings, turning selfwards, daily see thyself with an introverted look, and yet the reality will be known. Thus didst thou tell me, O Arunachala. Tirumbi ahamtane dinamaha kankan theriyum endragayal Arunachala. If such regular practice is allowed to go on for some time, self-attention will become more and more familiar, and one will then find it possible to divert one's attention from second and third persons to the first person, even in the midst of one's daily activities. Whenever a few minutes of leisure occur between the end of one activity and the beginning of the next one, if one thus tries to turn one's attention towards the first person, whenever one has a few minutes of leisure, by the end of the day, a great deal of time will have been devoted to self-attention, though intermittently. Such intermittent self-attention will in turn be found to be of great help to one when one sits for practice at the prescribed time, 10 minutes to half an hour each morning and evening, when no other outside hindrance will be there to obstruct one's practice. So Sadhguru Swamigal is saying how the practice is made practically and how it increases in time, how it becomes from intermittent to a bit more continuous. At first, one may not be able to maintain unbroken self-attention even for a few minutes due to a long habit. It is only natural that the mind will start to think of some second or third person objects. Each time the attention thus turns outwards, the aspirant again tries to turn it back towards the first person. This process of slackening of self-attention and then trying to repeat it will repeat itself again and again. So, though unintentionally maybe, one slips into again thinking of second and third persons, but the moment the memory of self-enquiry comes, one lets go of the second and third person and holds the first person. If the aspirant's mind is weak due to deficiency in the love to know the self, slackening of self-attention will happen frequently, in which case a struggle will ensue and the mind will soon become tired. Instead of thus repeatedly struggling to regain self-attention, one should relax the mind for a while as soon as the initial attempt to fix the attention on the first person becomes unsteady, and then again make the fresh attempt. This is a beautiful suggestion by Sadhguru Swamigal, that when the mind is tired, don't make this strenuous effort of turning inward, he says. You first realize that you are tired and the mind is tired, and Sadhguru Swamigal says, just relax at that time, recover the energy to do tapas, and once the energy is recovered, then start the self-enquiry, says Sadhguru Swamigal. If one makes intermittent attempts, each attempt will be found to have fresh force and more precise clarity of attention. So initially he says, when you are tired, give a gap, recoup energy and start again. Though it will be intermittent, you will find that each time you do, you are not doing in a state of tiredness. You have recovered the energy, and then you are attacking with clarity of attention. If one presses one's thumb on a pressure scale, the dial may at first indicate a pressure of 10 kilograms. But if one tries to maintain that pressure for a long time, the dial will show that it is gradually slackening and decreasing. On the other hand, if one releases the pressure after the first brief rest, presses again, after a brief rest, presses again with fresh vigor, the dial will show a little more than 10 kilograms. Similar is the case with self-attention. If one struggles for a long time to maintain self-attention, the intensity and clarity of one's attention will gradually slacken and decrease. But if instead one relaxes as soon as one finds one's self-attention is slackening, and if after a brief rest one makes a fresh attempt, it will have great intensity and clarity. Therefore, what is important is not so much the length of time that one spends trying to attend to the self, but the earnestness and intensity with which one makes each fresh attempt. During the time of practice, sadhana, our attention, which is now focused on the second and third persons, has to turn back 180 degrees, so to speak, to focus itself on the first person. In the beginning, however, one's attention may not be able to turn, may be able to turn only 5, 10 or 15 degrees. This is because one's turning is resisted by a powerful spring, the spring of one's tendencies, vasanas, or subtle desires towards worldly objects. Every time one tries to turn towards the first person, this spring of one's worldly tendencies will tend to pull one's mind back towards the second and third persons. Therefore, the number of degrees one is able to turn will depend on the firmness of one's desirelessness, vairagya, towards worldly objects, and upon the strength of one's longing, bhakti, to know the self. So Sadhu Swamigal is giving the second clue. First clue is when you are beginning self-enquiry, when you find yourself tired, don't pursue with that tired nature. Just rest, recover this energy, and then make a fresh beginning with new clarity. The second clarity is giving is that this turning around is 180 degrees towards the self from the second and third persons. Initially, we will not be able to make even 5, 10 or 15%, he says. So, what he says, what is it that is pushing us back to the outside world? It is the spring of the vasanas or desires, the hidden desires for the world, it says. Therefore, it will be able to come gradually only from out of two things. Reduction in vasanas or vairagya towards worldly objects, and increase in the love for the self. Such vairagya and bhakti will be increased in one by regularly practicing self-attention, by earnestly praying to Bhagavan, and by constantly associating with such persons or books as will repeatedly remind one. Only by knowing the self can we attain real and enduring happiness. So long as we do not know the self, we will be endlessly courting and experiencing misery. Therefore, our first and foremost duty in life is to know self. All other efforts will only end in vain. This should be known thoroughly, says Sadhu Swamigal. I'll repeat that again. He says 3 supports will be available to the sadhaka. Such vairagya and bhakti will be increased. Vairagya towards the worldly objects or the reduction in the spring that pushes you back to the world. Such vairagya and bhakti towards the self, will be increased in one by regularly practicing self-attention, by earnestly praying to Sri Bhagavan, and by constantly associating with such persons or books as will repeatedly remind one. What should the reminder be? Only by knowing the self can we attain real and enduring happiness. So long as we do not know the self, we will be endlessly courting and experiencing misery. Therefore, our first and foremost duty in life is to know the self. All other efforts will only end in vain. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Let us practice what Sadhu Om Swami has told us through the actual practice of self-enquiry. Before that, Sri Dileep sir will be talking about self-enquiry and helping us with the practice of self-enquiry.
Namo Ramana. Dhyayet Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamraravindekshanam Bhaktabhishtavarabhayapradakaram Kaupinamutrujwalam Swatmanandarasanubhuti Sarvanavadyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramaneshwaram Guruvaram Yogasanadhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramaneshwaram Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yahamahamiti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Swam Chingvata Majjatava Pavana Chalanarodha Atmanishto Bhavatvam. We will commence today's Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. I will be reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai, the topic from the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The topic is Samsara, verse 876. Until the appearance of the false snake goes, the robe, the underlying truth, will not shine. Similarly, until the appearance of the world, the superimposition, ceases, the substratum, the adhisthana, the true swarupa, will not reveal itself. Through this verse, Bhagavan is conveying it that the samsara is only an appearance. What is only the rope. And this appearance is something that we are imagining and giving it a reality, whereas actually what is only the rope or the self. Instead of seeing it as the self, experiencing it as the self, we experience it with some desire or some aversion or with some idea superimposed on it, essentially with some idea superimposed on it. And as long as we do that, and because those ideas are superimposed on it, it appears only in that form, and therefore we never experience the adhisthana, the self, the silence, the Atma Shanti, we don't experience. Therefore, it appears to be unrevealed because the attention is always given to the appearance, the superimposition. And therefore, all the great ones ask us to turn the attention to the source. To whom does this appear? Then recognize that it appears to this individual idea that I am this body, or to this idea of name and form, which we call as Dileep here. And then further, they would ask us to inquire, who am I? Bhagavan would ask us to inquire, who am I? And by putting that question and tracing what we really refer to as I, or where this I thought rises within us, and recognizing when the attention moves at 180 degrees, as Sadhu Swami says, then we see that the Swarupa alone is, and the appearance was all imaginative. And by repeatedly turning our attention 180 degrees, by whenever there is any object that appears to us, whether grossly in the world, as in the waking state, as Sadhu Swami was saying, even in our work or day-to-day life, or mentally, when we sit down for a meditation and appears as many imaginative ideas and thoughts, as long as there are objects appearing, we should see it as an opportunity, as Bhagavan says, to inquire, to whom is this appearing? And then naturally, it is appearing to me, not for somebody else. Therefore, the I, the thinker, who is the source of all this appearance, becomes available for vichara. Thereupon, when we inquire, who am I, or where from this I rises within me, or what do I refer to as I within me, the grace of the Sadguru, who has blessed us with this vichara of who am I, takes us and makes our mind abide, get absorbed at the source, and revealing the Adhisthana here and now, the true Swarupa here and now. With repeated practice, Bhagavan assures the mind will gain enough strength to abide in the source. And until such time, we should repeatedly practice this Atma Vichara. With the immense grace of Bhagavan, with which alone we have come to this most direct path, which can reveal the truth, remove the snake here and now, and reveal the rope, which is unmoving, not creating any fear, here and now, giving the Pradhana Shanti. That becomes possible by this Atma Vichara. The immense grace of Bhagavan, the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Thank you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We will now have the sharing of Dakshinamurti Stotram by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyama Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Oh. Sadhu Om beautifully said that all of us should go to that first person. So in today's satsang, there are 23 people. So there are 23 people who went to 23 first persons. Is that right? I'm asking that question again. The 23 people who went to the 23 first persons. There was actually not 23 first persons. There was only one person. And all 23 went to that same person. That is the silence. We all were in the silence of Bhagwan. So that's what is Dakshinamurti Stotram. Dakshinamurti Stotram takes us Dakshinamurti. God in the form of Guru with form takes me to the formless. So as we open our eyes, suddenly we see 23 people who are actually participating in the satsang. But when Dileep was doing the self-enquiry, we were all that one person. We were all together. So that if you are able to, in this waking, be that one person only, be in that silence, then that is the reason that Bhakti Dakshinamurti Stotram is all about. So what happens? What do we gain? See, as human beings, we always want to gain something. So the gain is knowing Paramatma as my Swarupa, knowing which I'll be free from sorrow forever. So the important thing is really to know who we really are. Once we know who we really are, we are the Bhagwan Swarupa, then we will have nothing else. We will not go for the second person and for the third person. And we'll always be with that first person, which is the silence. That's Dakshinamurti Stotram. I request Sapna to kindly chant the Dhyana Shloka and the second Shloka, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
मौनव्याख्य प्रकटितः परब्रह्म तत्त्वं युवानं वसिष्ठान्ते वसदृषिगणैः आवृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलितचिन्मुद्रमानन्दमूर्तिं स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतम् मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगीव यस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये.
Thank you, Sapna. I salute Sri Dakshinamurti, the young Guru who teaches the knowledge of Brahman through silence, who is surrounded by disciples who are themselves rishis and scholars in the Vedas. I worship Sri Dakshinamurti, who is a teacher of teachers, whose hand is held in the sign of knowledge, Chinmudra, whose nature is fullness, who reveals in himself and who is ever silent. So that's what we did in the self-enquiry, was we were abiding in the self, we were in the silence. I'll just read out the meaning of the second verse. He who is like a juggler or a great yogi unrolls this universe just out of his own free will. He who is like a juggler. We must have gone to a lot of magic shows and people who juggle. So he who is like a juggler or a great yogi unrolls this universe just out of his own free will. The universe, which before creation remained unmanifest like the future tree in a seed, and has later on projected himself out to the world of endless variety due to the delusory play of time and space, both the products of Maya to him. The divine teacher, Sri Dakshinamurti, is this prostration. So the previous verse, the verse 1, I'll do a little recap or maybe some repetition of last Saturday. The previous verse refers to the entire world. This refers to this world. This verse metaphorically explains the creation as well as the cycles for creation and dissolution. Before the creation, this world was undifferentiated. It means everything was unmanifested, and then this manifested happened. It's like the ocean, which was always the ocean, and it became the wave. So exactly the same thing. Before the creation, this world was undifferentiated, but then just as sprout comes from inside the seed, this world has come forth. This world has come forth from like the seed. So ancient rishis' vision of creation is not the same as the modern scientists. They knew that something existed before the Big Bang theory. Scientists call it singularity. We probably don't have the right language or scientific concept to describe it. However, the world comes from something. It did not come from nothing. So it is more of a transformation rather than the creation. In the vision of Vedanta, the unmanifest becomes manifest. That is meant by creation. So, how does the universe become manifest? So let's try to understand this. This universe was painted, chitrikritam, using many colors, by giving rise to time and space. How did all this happen? The universe was projected by a creative capacity of Ishvara. I'll read this again. This universe was painted using many colors by giving rise to time and space. How did all this happen? The universe was projected by creative capacity of Ishvara. Maya has different meanings in different contexts. In the first verse, it meant the ignorance. Here it has a different meaning. It is the power of creation also called creative capacity. This is the creative capacity of Ishvara by which we see all this. Ignorance is very powerful in creating. Ignorance can easily create a snake out of a string. That is why Maya always also means ignorance. Maya means also ignorance. The first half part of this second verse above talked about the creation and the marvel of the active creation. This is the active creation of Bhagavan, Ishvara. The second half below further talks about the creation that presuppose a creator. The one who indeed by one's own self, sankalpa or desire, like a great yogi or like a magician, expands the universe. Sri Dakshinamurti in this verse is referred to as the one who causes the expansion of this entire universe. How? Through his Maya. So Sri Dakshinamurti in this verse is referred to as the one who causes the expansion of this entire universe. How? Through his Maya. Here Maya has yet another meaning. In common parlance, Maya here means magic. See, when you go to a magic show, you see a magic. There was something which was unmanifested, but suddenly the magician shows you something. Oh, it gets manifested. That's why we feel, oh, wow, fantastic. So exactly the same thing. Here, Maya has yet another meaning. In common parlance, Maya here means magic. Maya Yavi means magician. Just like the magician, he expands the universe. This is the metaphor used to impart the profound Vedanta. It does not mean Ishvara is a magician. Rather, it points out an interesting fact. This is a very important point that we need to pay attention to here, that Ishvara is not a magician. Rather, he points out to an interesting fact. Whatever magician creates is not as real as the magician. Whatever the magician creates is not as real as the magician. The magician is more real than his own creation. The magician is more real than his or her creation. Same is true with reference to the verse above. You are more real than the world you create in the dream. So that's what it is. So that's why you come back to the first person that Nandakumar read about, Sadhu Om. You are more real than the world you create in the dream. That's the first person is more real. So the magician is more real, not the magic show, not the magic tricks that he is doing. Ishvara is compared here to a magician because Ishvara is more real than the creation. That's why they say, don't go towards the second and the third person. It's like a magic show. Go to the creator. That's where the creator within. Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram. So don't go outside. Go inside. Where is God sitting? He's sitting in the cave of your heart. So don't go to the thing that he creates. The Ishvara by his Maya Shakti has created this whole thing. Don't go into that. Ishvara is compared here to the magician because Ishvara is more real than the creation. The one who creates this universe, onto that Ishvara, Sri Dakshinamurti, this idam salutation, who is in the form of my Guru as well as in the form of Sri Dakshinamurti. Tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing by Dr.Kalarani Rengasamy on Devikalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சல. With the abundance grace of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Bhagavan in Tamil. And the last satsang we saw, Jnana Udaya Puruttedan Narkriyai Satkriyai Navilapattaral. For the purpose of attaining Jnana only, scriptures guide us to do good deeds and to be with good discipline. Means one has to perform Shiva Puja both inside and outside. A Satkriya means with great discipline worshipping Shiva in the temple. But after getting Jnana, both these can be withdrawn. Likewise, doing mantra japa and getting the pala, the fruit, by the way of that mantra murti darshan, make a man think that is the supporting stick, and he is not ready to leave that supporting stick. He holds it very tightly. This is Salamba Yoga. Bhagavan says, after realizing the truth, Jiva merges with Atma and becomes Atma itself. So, he need not catch hold of that supporting stick because he himself become that supporting stick because of abidance in the self, as Atma is the base for everything. So Bhagavan says, be in the self without any attachment towards worldly objects. He says, Nit prapanchatte nilai. That is the state. Nit prapanchatte state. Be in that state. And in the next stanza, Bhagavan says, Padalam unbaga pagar sakti antamai. Right from the underland to the upper strata, all things are happening on the basis of that Sakti alone. The source for creation, the whole creation and its movement is based on that Sakti only. From where all the actions get the energy, it is unseen. We can't see the energy. We can't see the electricity passing, isn't it? We can only see the impact of electricity. We can enjoy the electricity through many devices like fan, AC, fridge, washing machine and lot more. But when suddenly, when a device is not working, we never say the AC has gone, the washing machine has gone. We immediately will say electricity has gone, though we can't see electricity. Because we know very well that the source for all these devices is electricity. That is why Bhagavan says, Padalam munbaga pagarsakti antamai. When each and every action of the universe is based on that very Sakti, we who form a very tiny fraction of an atom, our action definitely must be based on that Sakti only. Is there any doubt in that? When we are not certain about our birth and death, our life in between the birth and death, how can we claim our action? And how can we claim the pala for that action and pala out of it as ours? We can't claim that. Even waking up from the bed in the morning is not in our hands. Thungugira bodhu vaangum moochu Shulimari ponalum pochu is a very famous saying in Tamil. The breath that we are inhaling and exhaling, if it takes a wrong direction while we are sleeping, there the story comes to an end. Living in such a situation, we think we are responsible for all actions. In Mahabharata war, when Karna was dead, Arjuna, after knowing Karna was his brother, cried, saying, "Oh God, I myself killed my brother. I am ashamed. I killed him." He was repeatedly saying, "I killed him. I killed him." Krishna called him and said, "See, Arjuna, many have killed Karna already. Many have killed him by calling him as a cart driver's son. So, he was forbidden to learn along with the children of royal family. Dronacharya didn't accept him as his disciple. And he learned from Parasurama. he is not from the royal family, he said that whatever you have learned, you will forget it at the right moment. This is the fate of Karna. Before the war, his mother Kunti Devi asked him to boon and not to use Nagastram more than once. That was one. That when I saved you by pressing the chariot 1 feet under the earth. O Arjuna, do you remember that? Again, before war, Indra went to Karna and begged for his Kavash Kuntala, which would have saved his life. Likewise, many have killed him before you aimed him with one arrow. Okay, that arrow finally took away his life. But he has been already put to death by many, including me, because I begged all the dharmas that he has accumulated at the last moment. And you claim that you killed him. Remember, you were only an instrument. Everything is planned by the Shakti, by me. Then Partha surrendered to Krishna. And many times we are also of the thought that I am the doer. What can I do? Even a small atom cannot be replaced by me without the Shakti. Avanindri oru anuvum asayadu. And the next stanza, Bhagavan says, Adharapatta ivai attunayum yarale sunyamam astiram konda veedalurum avar sura sunya jnaniyarai chutte. We'll meditate on this stanza in the next satsang. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Chatvarimshat by Sri Ujwal Jagadeesh.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. We are meditating on the 17th verse of Ramana Chatvarimshat, written by Ganapati Muni. Yat Purvam Shriti Paradarshi Dishano Dvaipayano Dhyaruhat Paschat Bodhakala Viduta Timira Shankapah Shankarah Tatsampratyakilāvani Talajusham Acharya Simhasanam Devatvam Prativikshate Naratano Girvana Senapate Ramanaya Loka Gurave Namaha Ramanaya Loka Gurave Namaha Bahuhinde Vedadamattundu Dadakanda Vyasaru Nelesidaru Nantara Jnana Kidinda Kattala Kaleda Shankaharipa Shankararu Idiga Nunda Janara Idiga Nunda Jagada Janaru Acharya Simhasanavaneeralu Devaninnanu Nirikshisuತಿಹರು ಮನುಜರೂಪ ದೇವಸೇನಾಪತಿಯೇ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. Ganapati Muni, in this verse, he is saluting the Loka Guru Ramana, and he is begging that ocean of compassion to come and adorn that seat of Acharya Simhasanam, which the world is expecting him to come and adorn and guide all the true seekers in the world. This Acharya Simhasanam, which long back was adorned by Vyasa Maharshi, and later it was adorned by Shankaracharya, that Acharya Simhasanam awaits you, O Girvana Senapate, O Deva Senapati, O Subramanya, O Muruga. In the human form, the world is waiting for you to descend and sit on that seat of wisdom. The Guru is ever available. Ramana says the Acharya Simhasanam is ever available in the heart of all the beings. And he is available, but we don't approach the Guru. Why don't we approach the Guru? Because we do not have complete faith in the words of the Guru. Because we still think the world, which is so beautiful, is much more pleasurable than the truth which the Guru is telling us, sitting on the Simhasanam of the heart. He is ever shining there and telling us to turn back towards him, but we are afraid. This story is very beautifully depicted, each one of our story of how we are afraid to approach the Guru and get his instructions is depicted in Mahabharatam, in the Leela, where the Parashara Maharshi once, when on a bank of a river, he sees a very beautiful girl. Her name is Satyavati. The words in our Puranas and in Mahabharata mean something very deeper than just the form. The Satyavati is the truth. The Parashara Maharshi fell in love with that eternal truth, and by the union of Parashara Maharshi and Satyavati, a son was born, and that son was named Dvaipayana. And because that son was dark in color, he was called Krishna Dvaipayana, and he was none other than the Vyasa. And later that boy grew up to become Veda Vyasa, and he had the work of segregating the Vedas and writing the Puranas and the Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata. When he was busy doing his work, Satyavati, later she was the truth, eternal truth, which is ever fresh and ever new. She was gifted back her virginity, and she married one more king, Shantanu. And by the union of Shantanu and Satyavati, they had 2 children, and those 2 children were not very healthy. So the Bhishma had to bring 2 wives for them, and the 2 wives were Ambika and Ambalika. And we know the story that one of their sisters, Amba, goes back, and she has a different story later. This Ambika and Ambalika are the bridegrooms, the brides who marries the son of Satyavati, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. But both Satyavati's son, they die at a very young age, leaving these 2 girls without any children. So Satyavati at that point remembers her son, Vyasa, and she tells this to Bhishma, and Bhishma invites Vyasa to come and give them the sons so that they can continue the lineage and they can rule the country. And the Vyasa, when he comes, he has finished a lot of work of segregating the Vedas, so he is unkept. He is looking very, very ugly and frightening. So Ambika, when she approaches Vyasa, she is afraid and she closes her eyes. And to her, Dhritarashtra, the blind one, is born. When we approach the Guru, but we are not able to listen to him, we are not able to see him, and we close our eyes, what is born out of that union is only a one who is deluded by the ignorance, the one who is affected by the illusion, the moha of the family and the children. That is the son who represents the ignorance, the darkness of ignorance, the blindness of ignorance. And Ambalika, when she approaches the Guru Vyasa, she becomes pale in fear. And the son who is born to Ambalika is Pandu. And the Pandu is very, very thin and pale and very, very weak. When we approach the Guru with the fear and when we become pale, we don't find the fullness. We become weak. But we hear the story when Satyavati requested Vyasa to again meet Ambika and give one more son who is healthy. Ambika, being afraid, she sends her maid to meet Vyasa. And when the maid, who is completely surrendered to the Guru, surrenders to him, the one who is born of that union is Vidura. Vidura, who is the Mahatma. Vidura, who is the Dharmishta. And Vidura, to whose house Sri Krishna himself comes. Such is the union when we completely surrender to the Guru. Such beautiful fullness blossoms. But we are afraid. We do not have the full faith in the words of the Guru. So we have this doubt within us. To clear all these doubts, Shankapaha Shankara was born. Shankara, who was born in Kaladi, at a very young age, he learned all the Vedas and the Shastras. And at the young age of 8, by the divine Leela, he got the permission from his mother, Aryamba, to take sannyasa. And he left home and he went towards the north of India. And there in a cave, he met his guru, Govinda Bhagavat Pada. And Govinda Bhagavat Pada was waiting for Shankara. And as soon as he reported him outside the cave, he welcomed him. Who is it? Come in. And he readily gave him all the treasures that he had understood and had practiced. And after that, he instructed him to go towards the north and spread the message of the truth, spread the message of the Vedas. And Shankaracharya, with his disciples, went to Varanasi, and there the luster of this young sage, it attracted many seekers, and everybody came to get solution for all their doubts. And in that sabha of seekers, when Shankaracharya was giving the discourse, an old man comes. And that old man starts questioning him regarding the various aspects of the Vedas and the Upanishads that Shankaracharya had written many bhashyas, and he was questioning every point that he had written. He was questioning every shloka, every verse from the Vedas, and trying to find out the essence from this young boy. And the young Bala Jnani, Adi Shankaracharya, was giving answers to all the questions. And this went on for many days. The discussion was going for many days. And the true seekers who were all around, who were listening to these discussions, were filled with joy, understanding these great subtleties of the Vedas and the truth, and which is made so clear by the words of Shankaracharya. And one of the disciples of Shankaracharya, he came to him, his name was Padmapada, and he approached Shankaracharya and told, Swami, the one who is questioning from every corner of the Vedas and every corner of the Vedanta, I don't think he is an ordinary old man. I think he is Veda Vyasa himself, who has come, the one who has understood the Vedas, who has seen the other shore of the Vedas, Shruti Paradarshi Dishano, Dvaipayano. He is that Dvaipayana who has come amidst us, and he is testing your prowess, Shankaracharya. And at that and after he got this question from Padmapada, Shankaracharya himself says, Oh, great one, you are the Veda Vyasa, isn't it? And the old man nodded his head, agreeing that he is the Veda Vyasa and the one who had understood the Vedas, and he had come to test Adi Shankara, and through testing, telling to the whole world that here is the one who has completely understood what I have segregated and made it available as the Vedas. Here is the one who has understood the essence of the Vedas, who has come here to give clarity for all the doubts. He has come so to tell to the whole world that Shankaracharya is the Guru, he is the one who is the next suitable, the wise Guru who can sit on the Acharya Simhasanam after the Veda Vyasa. And the Veda Vyasa instructs him, now your journey starts from now. you have to go to the Prayagraj and you have to meet a Kumarila Bhatta and you have to do debate with him and you have to take the glory of the self, the Advaita, the self alone, which is, you have to tell this glory to Kumarila Bhatta. And Shankaracharya goes to Kumarila Bhatta, and Kumarila Bhatta was such a great Pandit that he had understood the Vedas so well, and he had understood the Vedas so well, and he wanted to debate the greatness of the Vedas with the people of other philosophies. So he joined the Gurukula, which teaches other philosophy, and he started learning from the Guru to understand that philosophy so that he becomes very, very proficient to debate with them and take the glory of the Vedas. And when the Guru who was teaching that philosophy, he started talking ill about the Vedas, the Kumarila Bhatta could not withstand it, and he rose up and he started debating with the Guru, and everybody understood that he does not believe in that philosophy that they are all learning, and they all say that he should be punished, that he should be pushed from the roof, and his life should be taken away in this way. And Kumarila Bhatta, who went up the roof and they were ready to push him, and then he said, if the Vedas are true, let my life be saved. And at that point, he was pushed from the roof and he fell down. His life was saved. It says that one of his eyes went away. And that is because he said, if the Vedas are true, the doubt, that a little small doubt that if the Vedas are correct, if they are right, then the life be saved, was a doubt which was there embedded in that statement. He had to say, the Vedas are true and let my life be saved. But that small doubt made him lose one of his eyes. And after that, understanding that he had done Guru Droha, he wanted to give away his life. So he had prepared a fire from the husk, and slowly he was getting ready to give up his life. At that point, Shankaracharya came to debate with him, and Shankaracharya gave the discourse of the truth of Advaita, and Kumarila Bhatta understood at that moment, and he agreed to that truth which Shankaracharya was telling, understood that this is the essence of the Vedas and it is eternally true. He understood, and later he guided Shankaracharya to go to his student Mandana Mishra and continue the work of making everyone in the world understand the truth of the Vedas. This is the story of Shankaracharya. And Shankaracharya, who saw that the India people were worshipping many, many gods, he was the one who unified everything and made all these gods into 6 streams, Shan Matam. And then he explained that there is only one truth, and all these matams are only the faces of this one truth which shines as the Brahman in every heart. This was the truth which Shankaracharya told and removed all the doubts in the minds of the true seekers. In the same way, Ramana has come into our lives to remove all the doubts and make us abide in that one self. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of the verse of Ramana Ashtottara written by Vishwanatha Swami by Dr. Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the Ramana Ashtottara Shatanamavali, the 108 names on Ramana, composed by Vishwanatha Swami, and which reveals the life story of Bhagavan. It is based on the life story of Bhagavan. It is a summary of the life story of Bhagavan, as it were. And we were meditating on the Nama Mahashakti Nipatena Prabuddhaya Namaha. He who became enlightened by the descent of that great energy, that energy which is all encompassing, that energy which was referred to in the Dakshinamurti Stotram as Ishvara, which Dr. Kalarani also spoke about as the energy which is unperceived, which cannot be seen, which cannot be comprehended by any of the senses. So that huge energy, that Mahashakti, swallowed him up as it were. It descended on him as it were. And we also enjoyed other interpretations of this Nama, saying that the Adishaya Shakti of the mind, when it descends into the heart, then the Jnana takes place. And then Vishwanatha Swami goes on to say, what happened? He came to know, he became the knower of the highest truth. Paramartha Vide Namaha. Mahashakti Nipatena Prabuddhaya Namaha. Om Paramartha Vide Namaha. Paramartham is the supreme. Parama is supreme. Paramartha is that which is the supreme knowledge. But one can also look at the word Paramartha. It is the greatest meaning. It is the only meaning to life. It is the supreme meaning. Artha means meaning. Artha means wealth also. It is the supreme wealth. It is the supreme wealth. There is no higher wealth than that. He became aware of the supreme wealth. That's why Jagadeeshwara Shastri in the Dhyana Shloka on Bhagavan, he calls him Shrimantam. Shrimantam. He is the embodiment of all wealth. He is the most wealthy person. Kunja Swami would say that when my guru, who is a father to me, who is a mother to me, is the wealthiest person in this world, why should I go begging of anyone else for anything? Even Sadhu Om Swami says, and there's a beautiful Kannada translation of Sadhu Om Swami's song, which says, Ravichandra Taregala Irisuva Bhujake is this the shoulders which are bearing the entire universe, is my load very big. And when I have this person, Ivananta Sirivanta Tande Namagiruvaga, when I have such a wealthy father, Parara kade kai chachi bedaleno. Why should I beg of anybody else for anything? So that Parama Artha Bhagavan attained at that point of time, the greatest wealth, the greatest knowledge, Paramartha, the greatest understanding he got at that time, the highest truth, Paramartha Vide Namaha. All other learning, because Bhagavan soon after that, 6 weeks later, was to put aside other learning. He was to put aside the academic learning. Actually, until then, he had been a fairly good student in the sense that he had always gone through his classes, may not have been extraordinary, may not have shone in that academic stream, but he was always fine in his academics. There was no issue. But now he lost all interest in his studies. If he had any interest, he was not particularly interested, but not particularly disinterested either. But he lost interest. He specifically lost interest in all other vidya. He would be absorbed in the Paramartha Vidya, in that supreme knowledge alone. He would be absorbed at all times. Tivra is the next name which Vishwanatha Swami gives. Tivra. With great intensity, he was absorbed in the self and the self alone. All other knowledge became meaningless. Here we remember Shankara Bhagavad Pada, whose story we just heard, his advice to an old man trying to study a grammar exercise, the famous verses of Adi Shankara, Nahi nahi rakshati dukrinkarane, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudamate. And when we played the scene of Bhagavan writing the imposition of Bain's English grammar, Dr. Rajkumar Bharti, who was setting the background music for that scene, he used the tune of Bhaja Govindam, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrinkarane. So, it is of no use. Of what use is this? Sri Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswami, he says, Sarvam Vyartham Marana Samaye Shambhamekam Bhajeham. Everything else will go away at that point of death. Everything will desert us. Sarvam Vyartham, except the Paramartha Vidya, the supreme knowledge. There is a song which my sister Dr. Ambika would sometimes quote. Aayega jabre bulawa hari ka, chhod ke sab kuch jana padega. So when we get the call from the Supreme and the Marana Samaya, we have to leave everything behind. Of what use is any other Vidya to us at that point of time? And we also remembered, while meditating on Bhagavan's experience of enlightenment, we remembered the young boy Nachiketas, who is standing at the doorstep of Yama and asking Yama, tell me your secret. And Yama offers many things to him, various arthas, various benefits, various kinds of wealth in this world, including the wealth of good health. All that he offers to him. And he offers to him all kinds of knowledge. Everything is offered to him. And the young boy simply says, at the end, in some point or the other, however long my life may be, I will have to leave this behind. All this which you are promising me at this point of time, all that I will have to leave behind and come to your doorstep only again. I will have to come here again. So I have come now already. Tell me, what is the secret? What is your secret? I do not want any other artha. I do not want any other vidya. I want only the Paramartha, says that young boy to Kala, to whom? To time. So we have this option at every point. Bhagavan says in Ramana Gita, what is the highest duty cast upon every one of us? He says, in answer to Daivaratha's question, Bhagavan answers saying, abiding steadily in the self is the highest duty. But he qualifies his answer and he says, it is the highest duty for one who desires the highest. If one wants the Paramartha, then no other duty is cast upon us other than abiding in the self. If one wants the Paramartha, Bhagavan says, if you desire the highest, the Parama, and that highest became known to this young boy. He became enlightened, which meant that he knew that by knowing which everything else became known. He became the Sarvajna because of attaining the supreme knowledge. Nothing further needed to be attained. That's also indicated by this nama, Paramartha. When Vishwanatha Swami is using the word Paramartha, he is indicating that there is nothing further for Bhagavan to do or to attain. He has already attained the supreme knowledge. So whatever happened after that moment had no benefit at all for Bhagavan. There was nothing added on to him. There was nothing that he had to seek from anything, because he had got the ultimate knowledge, the ultimate wealth. He had got what the pinnacle of everything that had to be attained. Paramarthavit he became. So there was nothing further for him to do. There was nothing further for him to gain. This is therefore a revelation to us that after that moment, the entire life of 54 years of Bhagavan, and practically most of which after the first 6 weeks at Madurai and 3 days of journeying to Arunachala, the rest of those 54 years, Bhagavan was there at Arunachala. For whose sake was he there? It was an act of spontaneous, pure spontaneous compassion, because there was nothing for him to gain. That is what this Nama is telling us. And further it tells us that though there is an impression that Bhagavan did penance when he was in Patalalingam and other places, that is not the case. It is as author Osborne writes, to seeming tapas. And Shyamala Ramachandran, when she spoke of Bhagavan, she said, Bhagavan's tapas, if you call it tapas, Bhagavan's penance, if you call it penance, was unique because he didn't have anything to gain. He did not even want any vision of God. He didn't want union with God. He had no need whatsoever. Tapasya is normally performed. Great tapasyas, great tapasvis are there. Some have sung of Ramana saying, oh, I saw the Kali Valmiki Muni, I saw the great tapasvi Valmiki in Ramana. Yes, great tapasvi Valmiki, great tapasvi Dhruva. But Shyamala Mami said, one small difference, that Bhagavan had nothing to gain. He had absolutely no seeking. There was nothing for him further to be attained because he had got the Paramartha, says Vishwanatha Swami over here. It is from that perspective that we have to look at the rest of Bhagavan's life. It is for us to understand that, so as not to get confused by all the unfoldment of his Leela, thinking that he was ever seeking anything thereafter. That Vishwanatha Swami puts this beautiful Nama over here to reveal to us that Bhagavan's life is entirely and purely only a story of grace. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Aksharamanamalai given to us gracefully by Bhagavan, by Srimati Radha and Vallabh Srinivas.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ
அருணாச்சலா
மொட்டையடித்தென்னை வெட்ட வெளியில் நீ நட்டமாடினயன் அருணாச்சலா மோகம் தவிர்த்தும் முன் மோகம் அவைத்தும் என் மோகம் தீராயன் அருணாச்சலா மௌனியாய் கற்போல் மலராதிருந்தால் மௌனமிதாமோ அருணாச்சலா எவனின் வாயின் மண்ணினையட்டி என் பிழை பொழித்த அருணாச்சலா யாரும் அறியாதன் மதியினை மருட்டி எவர் கொள்ளை கொண்ட அருணாச்சலா ரமணன் என்று உரைத்தேன் ரோஷம் கொள்ளாதேனை ரமித்திட செய்யவா அருணாச்சலா ராப்பகலில்லா வெறுவெளி வீட்டில் ரமித்திடுவோம் வா அருணாச்சலா லட்சியம் வைத்தருணஸ்திரம் விட்டென்னை பக்ஷித்த பிராணனோட அருணாச்சலா லாபநீக பர லாபம் என்னையுற்று லாபம்
அருணாச்சலா
வரும்படி சொல்லில்லை வந்தென் படியள வருந்திடும் தலை விதி அருணாச்சலா வாவென்றகம் புக்கும் வாழ்வருளன்று என் வாழ்விழுந்தேன் அருணாச்சலா விட்டிடு கஷ்டமா விட்டிடாதுனை உயிர் விட்டிட அருள் புரி அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி.
Namo Ramana. We will conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara Puja to Bhagavan. Ashtottara Puja will be done at Sri Dileep Simha's altar. The Ashtottara chanting will be done by Vaibhavji and Prarthana and Uma and Ashwini.
ओ रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महोत्सेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्वादशान्तमहास्तरे लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्द्रशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ च्यूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूर्णिकाखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्री षोडाचलरुद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिह्नसंशयाय नमः ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः ॐ सौम्याय नमः ॐ आत्मवते नमः ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः ॐ महाभागाय नमः ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः ॐ विनताय नमः ॐ विनुताय नमः ॐ विप्राय नमः ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ रुच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्गीये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೂಡಿಗಾರನೆ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।